We're going to look at forming recurrence relations today. We are going to take paragraphs of information, we're going to interpret them and write it in the form un plus 1 equals aun plus b. That is the general form of a recurrence relation. The a can be found by doing the same calculations that you did for appreciation depreciation back in National 5. So, when a value increases by 3%, you would do 100 plus 3 divided by 100, and that gives you 1.03. When a value decreases by 8%, you would do 100 subtract 8 divided by 100, and that gives you 0.92. So remember, 1 point indicates an increase, and 0 point indicates a decrease. Your un plus 1 in the general form, that means your next term. Meanwhile, un means your current term. So you're going to have your multiplier multiplied by your current term, and then this plus b will just be if in the question it talks about you adding on an additional amount or subtracting an additional amount on top of the percentage. So let's look at 3 examples then. So example 1, in an old car it is estimated that oil leaks from an engine at a rate of 20%. Write down a recurrence relation which describes this situation. So an oil leak, that is going to mean a decrease. So we've got 20%, so we'll do 100 subtract 20. That gives me 80%, so we divide that by 100 to get our multiplier value, which is 0.8. So therefore, un plus 1 is going to be equal to, instead of a, I'll write 0.8. So it'll be 0.8 un. We'll then read the question again and see, is there any mention of anything additional being added to the engine? Is there any more oil being put in? There isn't any at all. So that means there's not going to be a plus b. So your final answer is purely going to be un plus 1 equals 0.8 un. So your next term is equal to 0.8 multiplied by your current value. Let's look at example 2. So a drug is given daily in 50 milligram doses. Its effects wear off at a rate of 25% per day. Find a recurrence relation that describes this information. So, the drug wears off at a rate of 25%. So that means it's going to be a decrease. So you have decrease of 25. That's going to be 0.75. You're doing 100 subtract 25 divided by 100, and that gives you 0.75. So your next term, un plus 1, is going to be equal to 0.75 times your current term, which is un. Now let's see if there's been anything added on. And what you'll notice is in the first sentence it says a drug is given daily in 50 milligram doses. So you're always being given 50 milligrams of this drug each day. So that means we can add on 50 to the recurrence relation. So our final answer is going to be un plus 1 equals 0.75 un plus 50. So if you wanted to work out how much the drug is in your system the next day, you are multiplying how much you had on this day, multiplied by 0.75, and then you're adding on the 50 that's going to be given to you the next day. And that is how you define that recurrence relation. Let's look at example 3 to finish off. The number of foxes in Blue Land is estimated to be 500. The numbers increase at a rate of 8% per week, but 10 die each week. So we're going to write down a recurrence relation to model the number of foxes, and then we're going to calculate the number of foxes after 3 weeks. So let's look at the multiplier. The number increases at a rate of 8% per week. So 8% per week, that's going to be 100 plus 8 divided by 100, giving me a multiplier of 1.08. Now, what happens to the foxes each week? Well, unfortunately, 10 die each week. So we can say that, well, although there's been an increase of 8%, we do know that 10 die. So we can subtract 10 from the recurrence relation model. And then that gives us un plus 1 is equal to 1.08 un subtract 10. Now, because of the context in this example, we've been given an initial value. Our initial value is 500. So u0 will equal 500. And we need to state that if we've been given it in the question. Now let's look at part B. So we're going to calculate the number of foxes after 3 weeks. So we've got an initial value of 500, and what we can do is, to find out how many foxes there are after 1 week, we can substitute 500 into this formula here. So it's going to be 1.08 multiply by 500, subtract 10. And when we do that, it gives me 530. To get week 2, we substitute 530 into the recurrence relation. So 1.08 times 530, subtract 10. And that gives me 562. And then finally, U3, we substitute it in. 1.08 multiplied by 562, subtract 10, and that gives us 596. So there are going to be 596 foxes after the 3 weeks. Now remember, the easiest way to put all this information in is to type in 500 equals in your calculator, clear the screen, then type in 1.08 times answer, subtract 10. Once you do that, you should be able to just push equals 3 times and get those 3 answers there. Any questions with this, please let me know. There is an exercise on the Teams page on these from the textbook. Please let me know if you have any problems and ask any questions if you're stuck.